All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am with an incredible human being. It's interesting because we were offline right before this and we were having a conversation and I was checking in with just how he's been doing. And he started to share a really cool story. And I said, you know what? Forget it. I said, hit pause. We're going to record and we're going to get after it right now. So if you are watching, you are looking at Bryce Heinbaugh. If you're not looking at him, you should be. He's a pretty face and he is a great human being. We had the opportunity to initially connect through LinkedIn, through the employee benefits and healthcare community that I am a part of. But it really all came together about a month ago from recording during a conversation that he and I had down in Puerto Rico. We were both down there for an event and he just blew my mind in so many ways. So that's why he's here today. He's got an incredible story to share, but beyond the story, he just has a life that I admire. And I think many of you will when you hear. So for now, Bryce, what's up, dude? Welcome to Unlocking Greatness.
What's up, man? I really can't believe we're on this doing a recording at the moment because, like you said, about a month ago, our little sit-down meeting, get to know you, that typically would go maybe 30 minutes at most, went nearly 3 hours. I was blown away, Brian. I mean, it's again, it's a pleasure to have gotten to know you here, and I know the future is bright for both of us. But I couldn't feel better about just being with a more aligned human being and doing this kind of mock interview podcast. It's great, man.
No, I agree, man. Okay. So, I said, how are you doing? And you said, I am a few hours from finishing up a 72-hour water fast. And my question to you, and so I guess you could just kind of quickly respond again to the part before I cut you off and then finish, but why? Like what led you to this? I mean, I've shared on my podcast, I did a 72-hour fast a year ago with our church. It was exceptionally transformational, but for you, what led you into this spot? And I'm sure you're excited to almost be done.
I am excited to almost be done. I wasn't planning on sharing with an audience about it. So we'll step that.
Surprise.
Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. Yeah. Yeah, man. So it's good. I guess it was meant that I shared and you had me kind of share the experience. So, the water fast, as I just started to talk last month, I did one really, on my own just for the physical test of it. And, Ryan, I told you that I sometimes like to test my physical ability as well. And I know you do out there running and grinding. And so I failed the 72-hour water fast last month. Honestly, I made it to about 62 hours. I didn't necessarily realize that I really needed to not work out during that time. And I pressed myself those 3 days and worked out. And I was in the middle of about a 6-mile run in the dark with a group of dudes. And I thought I was going to black out. And so I had to walk it off. I really wasn't sure what was going on. And I had to break the fast because I just felt myself just going downhill fast, quickly. So, this past Saturday, I actually been traveling a bit as you were, and I was home this past weekend, and I have a really close group of dudes that I'd been kind of doing life with since 2016, 2017. I started just asking these guys. Most of them are entrepreneurs. Some of them are family. One's an associate pastor. And I'd asked these guys to gather. We typically would gather Saturday mornings, kind of do non-denominational Bible study, and then, it kind of would go into entrepreneurial talk, business talk. Well, been traveling, haven't been doing it since actually I shared with you when we finished. We actually, again, I'm going to say to you, God led me to seeing that your book had been published and released, and not even knowing you, man, just respecting you in the industry and seeing the people that you run with. I said, you know what? I'm gonna buy 15 of these books and I'm gonna give them to those dudes. And so we did a book study on wounds, and so about a month ago we finished up the book, And at the same time, I actually met with you. And so we gathered this past Saturday, trying to make a long story short, but gathered this past Saturday, and I said to these guys, hey, I'd love to have you at my office. We'll do breakfast, and then we'll walk over to my office. I've got a quick video that I want to share with you guys. It's a sermon of a pastor. Some of you may know, some of you may not, but it's 20 minutes. It's on temptation. And most of these dudes that are in this group, middle age, some younger, but we've been through the fight, the battle, and that battle again, and especially with successful entrepreneurs, is things such as sexual immorality, money, greed, assets. Sometimes it's really just busyness, work. It's temptation to, I'm just going to stay grinding, and so we shared this video, and I said to the guys, at the conclusion, I said, hey, I'm really feeling led that we should be doing or considering doing like a 72-hour water fast. I said, it's not for the physical reasons. I'm actually I'd love to see you guys kind of in the muck and the mire with me, but to grow closer to your walk with God, the Holy Spirit, and really give up self, relying obviously, more on Him and not ourselves. And I said, I don't want anybody to commit, but if you want to do it, ping me by, start of the week and let me know that you're in. And so I've got 4 or 5 guys right now out of the 10 or 12 that typically meet. We're in it, and I'm finishing up here this afternoon. It has been, again, a different mindset, not the physical test, but the spiritual test. And it's been a revelation.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, it's incredible. I was a baby about fasting forever. I mean, 24 hours was like my life was coming to an end. And I realized that for the longest time, I was doing it for the wrong reasons, because I would do it with good intention. But then as soon as I got into it, all I was thinking about was what I was going to eat when I was done with the fast. And it was like I was totally missing the point, because I was supposed to be giving up something, and instead I was overly fixating on it. So as you have been going through this, and obviously you're still live in this, I'm sure it'll be far more reflective as you get out of it. But what are some of the things that you've been able to see in yourself? And obviously, whatever you feel like you want to share, but what are some of the things that you feel like have really come to the light over the last 3 days as one of the most important things, nutrition, has been stripped from you?
Mm-hmm. Well, first off, let me just say this. Third day in on this fast, and Ryan's asking me. I've been emotional. I've been spiritual. I've been on my knees. I have been trying to battle with work and business. So you're catching me at a state of mind that it's not typical of Bryce to at least show. So it's been good, man. My wife and I have connected really well over it. I shared with a staff member this morning. We were both in tears. She said, man, I can feel the presence of God in this building, in this place. Been encouraging my dudes, my men's group, sent out some communications to them. Word of God, scripture, just trying to stay strong in those moments of temptation, and really just encouraging these guys to dig deep, get out of that surface level stuff that you were talking about, Ryan, and really just falling to our knees and realizing, man, we're this big in the grand scheme of things. And so just powerful, my friend, very powerful. This morning, I knew that on that third day of the fast, I couldn't work out. I couldn't go to the gym. So I made a decision to get up like I normally do, very early. Sometimes people would say in the middle of the night. And I went down on my couch and, I just sat there in prayer and reflection, but I was actually asking God for revelation for this call with you today. Because I couldn't quite get there all week long. I just, what was the direction we were going to go? I knew I was doing this fast, but I still didn't have the clarity around, the direction of our conversation. And quite honestly, man, that revelation happened this morning at about 5:30 in the morning on my couch in my living room.
Wow.
Yeah, it was good. It's good.
I mean, what I love about, just so much of what you said is so powerful. Not everybody that listens to this podcast has faith in Jesus. And I get that. I wish every one of you did for your own good, not mine. But sometimes people can hear things like this and just not get it. And yet, I think, first of all, in its most simple form, it's when you begin to strip away everything that we believe we need, which obviously to some degree we do need food. Not to some degree, we do need it. It starts to reveal the true source of what is fueling us every single day, or what we're trying to allow to fuel us every single day. And we start to get more clarity, even though there's a lot of fogginess because we're struggling with the physical. It starts to bring so much more clarity. But there was something in the middle of that you said that was so powerful to me. And if I could have prayed for anything out of this discussion and for people to hear today, was you said, this is not the Bryce that people normally get, right? Like those are my words, not yours.
Yeah.
But because of the state you're in, and because of, again, just the way our conversation opened up offline, this is what they get. And what I love about this so much, Bryce, and we're going to get into more of the story that captivated me, but what I love about this so much is I knew you from a distance. I heard a lot about you. You are an incredibly successful individual. You're very humble about that. I know you're very, in a good way, proud of the work that you've done and all the ways that God has blessed you, but I know you're very humble in that. But you've been incredibly successful, and a lot of people look up to you and admire you for the work that you've done and are still doing. And so sometimes that can feel so distant and almost unrelatable, like, man, he's just out there and I'm over here. And we got hours and hours to be able to break that wall down, which was fantastic. But I think now, just in a few moments, there are going to be people that we both know and will have had an opinion maybe about you or a perception. And they're going to hear the first 5 minutes of this, 10 minutes of this discussion and be like, oh my gosh, like that's a man that I want in my world. Not just because he's successful, but because of how relatable and how human and how raw he is. And the fact that he cares so much more about all these other things and not just this one, this one thing that we all see, which is the professional. So I just think that's amazing. And again, if not of God, we wouldn't be having this conversation at all.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll take a shift because some people, again, have no idea who you are. They've never heard much about you. So why don't you give people a little bit of a background on who you are, kind of where you're at to this point in life, and then obviously I would love for you to share the story that we had a lengthy discussion around. But a little bit of background.
Sure. So my professional life, I am an employee benefits consultant. I help self-funded employers, really how they purchase and deliver healthcare to employees and their families. And we do it in a very innovative way. And so from the young age of 22, when I actually underwent open heart surgery, I had a hole in my heart that was undetected all my childhood. And most kids do. Unfortunately, they die in sports activities or elevated heart rate times. God blessed me and protected me. And senior year of college, end up last semester, find out that I had a hole in my heart the size of $50. I should have been dead long before that. grew up in a single parent household. My mother and I, part of the story is that, we moved, we lived in 15 different houses before I graduated high school. Wow. And that final house that I lived in with her is where I did my open heart surgery recovery. I did baby steps across the living room floor. And as I was doing that, I realized I was going to be uninsurable back before the Affordable Care Act, and so I needed to find some sort of a solution. I would graduate college just 5 months later, and I'd need to find health insurance. So I ended up, as God would have it, I found an internship at a health insurance agency in Cleveland, Ohio. I took the job. I had worked since age 13. Had multiple jobs, 2-3 jobs at a time. And even in college, I was working 3 jobs. But I saw this as an opportunity, so I took it. Finally, spent some time there quickly, learned about health insurance, and I started my own insurance agency the very following year, actually it was 363 days from the date of open heart surgery.
Wow.
So, yeah, man, just went into the business that way. And really, and my big audacious goals and hopes for going to the big city. And I was a degree in finance and accounting. I thought I'd, kind of go do the big career thing. I ended up I've never worked for anyone other than serving our clients. I've never had a corporate job. I read, in your book, I just hearing some of your struggles as well, Ryan, when you were trying to figure things out and get your feet on the ground. Well, nonetheless, started that firm, that agency from scratch. First sale didn't happen until month 4. First paycheck didn't happen until month 6. And I was living on a Capital One Visa card for every expense in my life. So just with some tenacity, but also God's blessing. Interestingly enough, for Christians to understand what the journey is, talk about being born again or being saved, those things. Really, I fell to my knees at age 18, going into college, freshman year of undergrad. Wow. And was then, as we would call it, got saved. I got saved from an experience where I was testing God. I said, if you show me this, then I'll trust you. If you do this or make this happen, I'll trust you. And let me tell you, I've learned from then never to do that again. But anyhow, get into the business, and God would have it that I had zero social capital, so I would shake hands of people that would put me in the right places and the right introductions and those things. And so we've had a very successful growth over those course of the years. But I got involved with Health Rosetta. That's the organization that a lot of us consultants that are doing this type of work, which is really we're anti-status quo in the healthcare business. We upset cash flows and money flows, but we do it for all the right reasons. And so got involved with Health Rosetta just within about a year of that, because I started to learn more and understand. My mind became more open. We started a nurse navigation company, a fully clinical arm of our company that just does nurse navigation for employees and their families in their healthcare journeys. And so God has just continued to bless me with the circle of influence. Ryan, as I shared with you in Puerto Rico, you and I, my friend, it's like our life stories are almost identical in the things that we've overcome with God's help, but also the Spirit has protected us in some of what could have been most detrimental, life-changing circumstances. And and so I share that with you in this crowd because one of the things around success that I believe is, again, definition of success is, everybody's opinion. But for me and where I am today, I needed to hit rock bottom, and I needed to hit my worst valley ever. And that came right before Health Rosetta and Nurse Navigation came in the years of 2016 and 2017. Wow. And from that point forward, my entire mindset and the revelation that I had this morning when I was really in my living room was going to Galatians chapter 5 and living by the Spirit and changing my ways and mindset around what I thought was important, what the world would have me think was important, and but instead focus on my calling, what I believe God has called me to do in our team and our company and organization, and quite honestly, man, that's where the real fun has begun, and I'm so thankful for it.
Yeah. So I have a question to ask in the midst of all that, because I mean, you undersold just how incredibly successful you have been and all that you're involved in. But again, I appreciate that. And you talk about, hitting a rock bottom moment, recognizing just, how important life is. You push harder, you get involved with other people. There are a lot of people out there that have the same story of, I've worked really hard. I've been pursuing what I believe I'm called to. Maybe I've even, I've been in the pit, but they haven't come out the other side achieving some of the levels of success that you have. And I'm not saying, and I know you wouldn't say this, you're not, raining down dollars everywhere you go. I'm not trying to say that at all, but you have done well to build a good, successful business that's making a positive impact in the world. I know you're able to take care of your family. So why do you feel like, this is going to be a hard question, especially when you're this down on, on energy.
Vulnerable. Yeah.
But why do you feel what's different about why you're in the place you're in versus the dozens, hundreds, thousands of other people, millions of other people that have been set up for something similar and not achieved what you've achieved?
Yeah. Well, a few things. My childhood and my upbringing, I held on to bitterness for a very long time. A bitterness that if those who know David Goggins and his mentality, which is again, you could definitely see some like bitterness. I would take that. I loved it. I mean, when Can't Hurt Me, his book came out, I loved it because I was grinding, man. I had that grit. When I was growing up, I was doing concrete and masonry work 4 summers, man, just pounding it out. And that same mindset was set in me for a while, but I would take bitterness, anger, all the things that would upset me. And I'd say, man, I can't have what they have. I can't, I went to a country club one time, my first time at a fancy country club. And again, I laugh about it, but I didn't know that you're not supposed to put your shoes on in the parking lot, and supposed to drop your bags off, and all of those things. I mean, I have struggled with. I'd look at people and I'd say, "Man, silver spoon," silver spoon, and I people don't know what it's like to grind and know what it's like to struggle for. My mom and I. One time Dave Chase interviewed me, and I said to Dave, I remember high school, it'd be Monday, and my mom would say, we got $20 to payday, and we got no groceries. So we're going to be eating breakfast for dinner, pancakes, whatever it is, at $20. And, and so that bitterness drove me for the longest time, dude. I mean, I was over the top. You ask any of my close friends that, they're like, man, Heinbaugh, he's freaking crazy. This dude is nuts, and he in a drive that, I don't care. I kind of always had the mentality that I'm never going to be the smartest person in the room. I've grown up that way. I'm not, but damn it, nobody will ever outwork me. And that was that root of bitterness. And only until recently did I realize where it was coming from. my father left my mom and I when I was a year old and pulled out of our driveway with another woman. For years, I battled with that. And for years, I held it against him. And it was a lot. But nonetheless, I was driven by it. And I was driven because of the anger that I had toward him, and just felt like, gosh, man, here I am. And, my mom and I, she didn't go to college. She never made much money, and we're here and we're stuck. And so anyhow, I read a sales book back when I first started. It was copyright 1982. Author was Tom Hopkins, The Art of Selling. I didn't read the book. I found one sentence that said, the best paying hard work there is sales, but the least paying easy work is sales. And I just realized that I didn't have social capital. I didn't have much to rely on, and I could outwork anybody. So I'm just going to hustle, and we're going to do this. And so really got to that point. But my mindset was on, to be successful in life meant I had to have, I had to sell, and I needed the fast cars. I needed a big house. I needed to prove to people. I had to prove to the teachers who doubted me in high school that I was going to be successful, people that just, I almost was put in that pot of kids that was just, they're not maybe going to go anywhere. And I just, just had to prove people. So the problem is that my target was on all the wrong things. And so once I put myself in a predicament to where I couldn't get out myself, I couldn't fix it myself. And I'll never forget, that time in my life where I was looking for the easy way out because I was failing. Everything was falling around me, and I needed to be broken of that. And so that was the start of what I will say to you is my adult professional success. But obviously, it is a journey. God calls it a journey. We know it as a journey. And it is that point where, like the name of your podcast, Unlocking Greatness, that's where it began, right about that time.
Wow. I mean, I appreciate so much of what you said there. I try not to tear down people because, somebody like David Goggins, he's done incredible things for society, for himself, for society. He's overcome odds like 99.99999% of the population would never be able to overcome. And you want to, and I respect that. But at the same time, that mentality, which has been prevalent in society for a long time. There's a I hate to use his name because I don't want people to go look at him, but there's a sales trainer that's kind of up and coming right now. His name is Andy Elliott, and he's very much he's just like Grant Cardone. It's like, I'm just going to yell at you until you get it together. You are weak until you're successful. Yeah. And it's this whole idea of like, I'm going to stomp everybody around me. I'm going to prove people wrong. My pride is going to overcome your ignorance, my bitterness and anger. Like people say like revenge is the sweetest success. I used to live by that. And I hear that in you. It's like, my dad left. I'm going to show him what mistake he made. Those teachers doubted me. I'm going to show them how wrong they were. And of course, we want to be able to prove the haters wrong in the sense of that's not who I am. I am worthy. But when we use that, like you said, as fuel, that turns into rage and anger, and especially in men. I mean, this is something that John Eldredge talks a lot about in Wild at Heart and a lot of his writing. It's like our natural tendency is to take this aggression that can be used for good and turn it to anger, rage. We fight, we engage in very awful ways. And so I love that you're saying that, because I want to be part of a movement in which we bring back the tenacity, the grit, the relentless pursuit of excellence and success and greatness, especially in men today.
Yes.
But I want to see that happen, and I want to be part of a movement that does that without the destructive nature that often comes with it. And it's hard to detach those things, right? I mean, it's got to be something that you still battle today.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I still have that mindset. I heard a pastor say, men of faith or strong men will run into pain. Weak men will run into pleasure. And so that will always, but God calls us to be strong. God calls us to be, the head of our household, the head of our marriage, to lead our kids. And when you're at the top of an organization, such that I am, I have to be the strongest player. So there's very little time. I don't give myself probably as much grace or mercy that I need to, but that saying around, heavy is the head of the one that wears the crown. Right. As men, and again, you don't have to be a business owner or CEO. You the head of your household, the father of your children, the head of your marriage. Like, God calls us to be strong. And in those Old Testament writings with Elijah and Gideon, like, those dudes are dudes I admire. I mean, I love the fact that, Elijah came from the wilderness, and I love the fact that, he just trusted God, and, ravens fed him probably, dead carcasses as he waited. And, I think of that. I've told you, Ryan, that I enjoy the Mountain West. I elk hunt. I do things outdoors. I love to test my physical body on those mountains out west. But man, there is nothing like being able to get to the top of that mountain, pause for a second, and say, "Oh God, I am weak without you, and I need you." And that is probably what has accelerated my growth, because that back to being spirit led, and that's how I feel. I still have that grit. I need it there, because I'm going to protect those who I love, protect the ones that I'm serving, and I will go to battle for just, again, as I told you, I come from some blue collar type work, and I mean, I'll always have that, but I also do want to say that, as strong as I may seem, again, I am spirit led in the things that I do and the decisions that I make.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's actually a really good segue, because again, just I always love to pick up in the middle of a long piece of dialogue. There's just these key things that just seem to really stand out. And so one of the things in there that you said to me was, or you use these words a couple of times, but like protector, standing up for, leading. So this leads to what was probably one of the most mind-blowing stories I've ever heard. I mean, there were so many highlights, Bryce, to our discussion in Puerto Rico. First of all, your spirit, your mindfulness, your attentiveness, your desire to connect. Those are things that I find rare in men. And so I just was so engaged that I didn't care what we were talking about. I just wanted to sit with you for hours, and I hope we can continue to do that from across the country. But you had one of the wildest stories I've ever heard of needing to protect. And so why don't you help a little bit share this story of a vacation that went absolutely disastrous more quickly and unexpectedly than anybody could ever possibly have a nightmare of?
Yeah. I'll share this, but I'm gonna say to you, starting off in your book, how you captivated myself and how you didn't lose me, because I don't finish every book. I mean, I read a lot of books, man. I finished your book, but it caught me by surprise. Early on, I don't know if it was your first or second chapter, but what you went through in Vegas, that shooting, is terrible. But I immediately bonded because of that. My wife and I were on vacation just after Hurricane Irma had gone through the Caribbean, Hurricane Maria as well, Puerto Rico area. And I had we had a special anniversary that we were celebrating that year, and I had to postpone it a bit because the hurricane hit the island of St. Martin and destroyed it. And so I had an Airbnb. The people that owned it were in France, and they were able to move us to another home that they owned in a mountainside villa there. And we said, okay, well, most of the island is destroyed, but hey, the house is perfectly fine. We'll do the house. We'll do the beach. A couple restaurants are open in this area called Grand Coste on the island. It's French cuisine. It's lovely. And so, yeah, my wife and I, now I will tell you this, back when this occurred in 2018, I did not, and again, this is the baby Christian, right? Just kind of, I told you I was saved at age 18, all those years, but I really didn't double down on the belief so much that the Apostle Paul says we don't fight flesh and blood, but we fight spirits, principalities, and powers, the unseen world. And man, to be honest with you, my wife felt it, but when we were on that island, there was something was off. Something was really wrong. And I will say that looking back and realizing that there was a lot of just evilness in and around us. We were the only, I would say, white Americans running around on that island. A lot of people still sleeping in tents, shelters that were probably set up from the hurricane, and it felt dark. And I hope I don't offend people around that, but it was spiritually, there was an oppression that we could feel there. And we were supposed to stay, we were going to be there 8 nights in this beautiful mountainside villa. And on the 4th night at 2:22 in the morning, and I know that time because I looked at the clock. It was the time I woke up. I opened my eyes, and to make a long story short, opened my eyes, and over the bed, just about over top of my wife, was a very large man, and in our room with us, and he was going toward her. And I praise God for for that grit and that fight. I'm on this dude in 60. I mean, not even 60 in 6 seconds. I am on top of him and have him by the neck. I'm hanging on to him and just trying to choke him out. And I have no idea. It's so dark. All I could tell is this was a big dude, and that he could have a gun or a knife, but I wasn't sure, and I didn't care. And I was ready to go. Long story short, he gets away from me, gets out of my hands, and he retreats. He's going back out the window, and as I'm holding, I've got just one last grip of him. He says he's gonna effing kill me, and he takes it. He goes to turn, and my friend, there's a moment in time where, just like you, Ryan, I know that you felt the same way that day in Vegas. This is it. And so he ended up, because I let go of him too fast, he fell out the window before he could get completely turned around to me. And when he fell out the window, I dropped the hurricane door right then and locked it. And I turned around and I have no idea. I'm just, reeling. My mind's just going, what just happened? What just happened? Where's Lisa? Where's Lisa? And I turn the light on and she's standing there with 2 butcher knives from the kitchen. She thought maybe he got me, and obviously he was coming to get her. And so that was a very traumatic incident. It's obviously just like you. I know that. I think we laughed about it in the lobby of the hotel in Puerto Rico. I can't sit with my back to the door. I'm constantly. I always back my car in. I mean, my staff makes fun of me, but I back my car into parking spaces every time. I can't get that freed up. But we were okay. My wife went into shock. I'm sure yours did too. And just like that event, didn't know what to do. The phone lines didn't work. Again, Hurricane Irma. Phone lines didn't work. There was no network. I felt like we were on the movie Taken, and nothing. I couldn't know 911, nothing. Finally, I don't know how I got, but I got to a dispatch. If anyone's familiar with St. Martin, you know that it's the north side of it's French, the south side of it's the Netherlands, Dutch. And somehow, some way, I got to a Dutch emergency service line who connected me to a dispatcher, and I explained where we were, and I stayed on the phone. And what's interesting, man, and this goes back to how dark it was. We're still not out of it, because the cops try to come to the address, and it's a gated community of mountainside villas, and the guard at the checkpoint tells the police officers that the address does not exist and they got the wrong place. And I'm still on the phone, and I can hear the police officer tell the dispatch, and the dispatch talk back. And I said, "Ma'am, you have to tell them that's the address. We're right past the guard station, but they, take a left and they'll see it." I said, "You tell them this. Tell them to drive across the bay on the French side and look back onto the Dutch side. My wife and I will be flashing the outside lights of the house so that they know that we're there, and to tell that guard, that we're there, So I stay on the phone, and he tells the guard, he says, "I can see the house. The guy's back here. Let us through here." And so I stay on the phone, and then I tell the dispatcher, I said, "Hey, tell that police officer," and actually there were 3 cars, "tell him to honk the horn 3 times, and I'll open the hurricane doors so I know it's them and that we're safe," And my wife is still barely breathing, completely in a state of shock. I'm covered in blood, by the way. And I don't know if I mentioned that. I don't know whose blood it is. It doesn't matter. We let these guys in, and they look around, and nothing. But shortly thereafter, they asked me, "Can you walk outside with us?" And I'm like, "Man, dude, I don't know." He's like, "Well, I got to, walk outside, show us where this guy went so we can see if we can capture anything. Did he have anything of yours?" Well, he did. He had some things that he had picked up in the villa and dropped outside, but we got an emergency flight out of there. The cops left, and bottom line is, I spent an hour.
They left you guys with you just back in the house by yourself?
Yep. They said, "Lock up. You're fine here. They must be gone."
And so you're like, "No, I'm not. We're not fine."
No, yeah, we were not fine, but they were just not. They were not friendly with us, and so I kept trying to reach every airline I could to get, because I looked at my wife that day, Lisa, and I said, at that moment, I said, "Are you going to be okay? Or do we need to get out of here?" And she said, not okay. And so I got through to a Delta Airlines phone number in Europe, and and I booked us a prop plane around, like, I want to say it may have been like 7 in the morning, like just a couple more hours. We just had to get the daylight. That's all I kept telling her. The sun's going to come up, honey. We're going to be able to, I can see, we can step out of this house, get in the car and go right to the airport, But we ended up getting on a prop plane that morning, got to Puerto Rico, which Hurricane Maria devastated their entire airport. We get on a jet there, out on their tarmac, get in a jet and make it to LaGuardia to get home back to Cleveland.
Oh my.
So anyhow, that experience, like, this is why your book, my friend, every one of your chapters hit in a different way with me. And I can tell you that most men would probably agree that most of these things have happened to them in some form or another. And if they say that they haven't, then they're lying. My guys at my men's group here that did this study, every one of these dudes could relate in some form or fashion to you, man. And maybe it's the time period that we grew up, the same age range, but to walk through every one of these chapters and realize that, like, the wound, the healing that needs to happen and how you walk people through that. I'll tell you, in the most simplistic form, whether people are believers or not that are listening to this podcast or considering buying your book, I'll tell you, there's no other way to overcome these traumas, man. You have to heal, or you're never going to be released from that. Just like I told you with my father and the bitterness that held its grip on me for a long, long time.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's so much. I mean, I put myself as best as I can into your story, specifically in that situation, and just think of, like, I remember I wrote about it, it's like, and yours was way worse in the sense that there was somebody standing in the room, and as tough as we make ourselves out to be, there is a decision that needs to take place. And it's not that every man wouldn't try to do something, hopefully, but that's not something you prepare for, it's like, and I think part of it, and this is where I love the, what man meant for evil, God meant for good. It's like all the anger, all the fighting your whole life, all the aggression, as God began to reveal himself to you, he didn't wipe those things away. It wasn't like he ever erased your dad leaving from your memory. It was, he took that pain and anger, that hurt, and he turned it into an opportunity for you to grow, not to become calloused, but to become more of a man, to become stronger, to become more of a fighter for right. And so then, when this person is standing over the top of your wife and you have a decision to make, that man steps up.
Yeah, you bet.
And then when that's all done, and though it wasn't all done, and you had another decision to make, it's like, now I need to get my wife out of here, and I will stop at nothing to make sure that she is safe again. Because probably you, like I, if you really had to, you could have figured out a way to endure a couple more days by yourself if it was just you. Yep. But when you have a responsibility, right? When you talked earlier, and this is where it gets so screwed up, like the Bible is clear, we are called to lead our wives, but leadership is not lording over. It's this right here. It's you are in need. You are hurting. You are scared. I will use every resource available, my physical strength, my brain power, my money, whatever it takes to get you to safety. But I believe, Bryce, and I know you'll agree with this, if every moment of your life would not have happened up until 2018, I don't believe you would have been fully capable to do that.
No, I agree.
Which connects so much to what I asked you earlier before we even led into this conversation, which was, why have you gotten to the place you have in life and other people haven't? And it is because, in my conviction, you have allowed God to turn what was evil to good. And you have used that good, not as an excuse to hold you back, but as fuel to fight you forward. Not to prove people wrong, but to glorify him. Not to just gain for yourself, but to serve and love and make an impact on other people. That's the man that I admire. And that's what we need to see more of in this world. And I feel like we are so desperate for right now. And I think that like those guys that you're in that men's group with, I'm sure as much as they love you and respect you and are grateful for you, I don't think they truly understand just what they have in you. Mm. And we need that. And it's hard for like, you're not the guy that's going to stand up on the roof with a megaphone and be like, I'm that guy, follow me. But I feel like we need more men like you to stand up on the roof with the megaphone and say, I'm that guy, follow me. But guess what? You're not following me because of me. You're following me because of what God has done through me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, right quick, my mind just went somewhere because, again, I'm an emotional state, so I, again, apologize. But I shared with you that I think in Puerto Rico that I did my first mountain ultra this past year in the fall,
which is also
Big
crazy.
Sky, Montana. And I, you just made me think of something, but I've run a lot of races, actually like foot races, over time, and marathon, half marathon, all those things. But I always play music. Goggins got me through a marathon with his book on Audible. But what I want to tell you is this is how I know I've gotten to that next level. And again, some people call it sanctification. I'm not sure, where I'm at. I'm working toward that. But I ran that mountain marathon there in Big Sky, 32 miles, over 10,000 feet of elevation change. And I didn't train. I told you, Ryan, I've been battling. I haven't run in 18 months because I've had a bad sports hernia. But I had signed up for this a year previously, and I couldn't go, and I did it again, and I said, I'm doing it. So I didn't train. I got on that mountain, scared to death. They started the race with an elk bullhorn in the dark. I'm scared to death. But one thing I didn't do is no audio, nothing. And I said, and I just had this conversation with somebody in my company just this week. I said, what's wild is I did that race knowing that my body would break. And it did, dude. I was broken. And I knew that I didn't have the grit because I hadn't trained. And I literally knew that I would have to rely on him to get me through that. And there was a checkpoint every 5 miles. And if I didn't make my time, they would disqualify me. I was one of the last people to finish that race. I was one of the last 12 hours it took me.
Oh my God.
And to be honest with you, I remember that last mile or two running downhill off a Lone Peak. And I remember my sternum was hard, and my shoulders were back, and I'm running through brush, and I can smell the pine trees, and I know that the end is in sight, but I know that I can feel the Lord is just over me and I'm going to finish, and I'm going to get there. But I had to draw on that power that I've never drawn on before in any race at any time. And I'm going to tell you, when I crossed that finish line, as emotional as I am right now is how emotional I was right then. But I knew, I had the Spirit with me, and I had God's strength that whole time. And that's the difference now in my life. That's what I'm talking about. So, yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know time has just flown by here, and I'm going to re-listen to this and go, man, what state of mind were you in? But to be honest, I guess this was meant to be, that we would connect on the third day of this fast.
But this, to me, maybe not ideal for you. Yeah. This is perfect, because this is the story of that race just encapsulated so perfectly. You had nothing else to rely on, even in just this discussion, but just the strength of the Lord. You couldn't prepare that well because you didn't really have it. You're exhausted. You are 2-3 hours away from eating. It's just like there was nothing there but just to be a real and raw you. And this is what we need. This is who we need to be. This is who we need to surround ourselves with. And when I talk about, like, people say to me, well, what is greatness? You're trying to help people like unlock greatness. Ultimately, greatness is becoming the man that God has created you to be.
Amen. Because
at that point, you will accomplish whatever purpose he has set out for you to accomplish.
Yeah.
And this is it. This is unencumbered, right? When the book of Hebrews says, let us run the race with endurance, right? And then it says, setting aside everything that entangles us. It's like, it's not just the sin, it's everything in our lives that gets in the way of letting us just fully be the men of God that he has created us to be. Yeah. And so that's what I love about this conversation, Bryce, is this is as raw you as we will probably ever get. And
I promise you that it will be.
Man, I appreciate you so much. I'm grateful that you made it a point to reach out to me initially, and we tried to connect here in Southern California weeks before, and we couldn't. We were able to be in a totally different place from home for both of us at the same time. We were able to set aside that time so perfectly. I can definitely call you a friend, and I feel like there is just such a deep connection, not just to our stories, but to the journey that we're on, to the values that we hold. And so I just want you to know I appreciate you, and I know that everybody's going to listen to this and feel the same way, man. So thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Mutual feelings, all the same things, man. I really appreciate you having me on. You've had some great folks that have been on this podcast in the past, and kind of had that imposter, that feeling where I'm like, man, what am I going to talk to him about? And here we go. You just got the rawest Bryce.
God said, you don't get to choose what we talk about. I do. So it worked out well, man.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, to everybody listening out there, we'll make sure to put some connection to Bryce in the show notes. If you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. Like this, share this. Again, I know I can speak for Bryce in saying this isn't about us. This isn't about our story. This is about being vulnerable enough to help you understand you have a story to tell. You have wounds to heal from. You have greatness to achieve. I want to compel you to at least consider, for those of you that don't, that without faith in Jesus, you will never truly understand who that is for you. But you got to figure that out for yourself, and I pray that the Spirit works in you to do that. So with that, thank you guys so much. Another episode in the books. We'll talk to you soon.